Hello and welcome to an all new episode of the Cosmic Force. Happy Star Wars Week, everybody. It was a very fun day yesterday. Hopefully everybody's wallets are okay. Happy Revenge of the 5th or Revenge of the 6th. I don't know if you celebrate it tomorrow. I'm not really sure what everybody does, but we're here tonight and we're going to talk some Star Wars comics, and I'm here with the usual gang tonight. Emma, how's it going? Happy Revenge of the 5th.
Yes, happy Revenge of the 5th, everyone. Happy belated May the 4th. I had a blast yesterday. It was a lot of purchasing things. I want to shout out Eric Eilerson, who bought some stuff for me when I was having some hard times, like finding some stuff, and free shipping wouldn't apply and yada, yada, yada. It was a pain. Thank you, Eric, for making sure I got those Funkos. It was fun. And Bad Batch. I mean, what else is there to say?
We can't. Yeah. Bad Batch was amazing. Caleb, how are you? How is your wallet doing the day after May the 4th?
Good. I'm kind of waiting for things to kind of settle down, see if there's things I really want. I like to put things into like carts and organize them. And then like if towards the end of the sale, if I still can't live without it, then I purchase it. And in case you're wondering, it is both Revenge of the 5th and Revenge of the 6th, because remember, Sith always go in pairs, the rule of two.
There you go. That's what I like to hear. All right. And the last member of our team tonight, Jacob. Now, Jacob, I know you. I know you had a rough day yesterday with your lightsaber Disney Store episode. But besides that, how was your Star Wars day?
It could have been worse. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it might have been a blessing in disguise in the fact that I didn't drop almost $400 on lightsabers. But I got some mugs, and that's always a good thing, even though I don't have any room for those in my cupboard. But it's fine. Everything's fine. And I also definitely
F's in the chat.
Did not get up at 3 a.m. Eastern time to check the merch drop that only ended up being a couple of t-shirts. So it's great. Everything's fine. But hey,
yeah,
Bad Batch was good. And we did the Patreon hangout with the night at the opera. That was a lot of fun. So,
yes. For those of you who are not a member of our Patreon, some of our staff last night did our quarterly night at the opera event where our staff gets to hang out with some of our higher tier, some of our Patreons, and kind of just hang out. And they did a watch along with Bad Batch, and I heard that was a great time. But yes, this is the Cosmic Force, and we are part of the Youtini podcasting network. We broadcast live right here on youtube.com/Youtini every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. And if you can't join us live, that's okay. Our videos are up anytime you want here on YouTube. And I've officially confirmed we are now on all podcast networks that you can think of, whether it's Spotify, whether it's Apple Podcasts, whether it's Google Podcasts. We are there. So subscribe to us, download, listen, leave some comments. We all appreciate that. And continue to share the love. Like I said, we are part of the Youtini Podcast Network. What is Youtini? You may ask if you are new to the show. Well, Youtini is a community of positive fans that share our love for the greater Star Wars universe. Novels, comics, audio dramas, and everything in between. If you love Star Wars and you have been looking for a community of people to share that love with in a positive way, well, Youtini is that place. You can find the link to our Discord server with almost 1,000 members in the show notes, and we'll drop it in the chat as well. If you like what you see and you want to say thanks, head over to our Patreon channel that we were just talking about at patreon.com/Youtini, where for as little as $5 a month, you can gain exclusive access to the entire Youtini podcast network of shows, as well as exclusive merch and community involvement events like the Night at the Opera last night. So, like I said, we had a little event last night. I was not able to go, but I was able to watch Bad Batch, and overall, I loved it. What is everybody's overall thoughts? Let's go around the room and just say what our overall thought is, and then we're gonna talk about one subject in particular after that. But Caleb, what was your thoughts on first episode of Bad Batch?
I was very excited. It's, I feel like the trope of having like the team of cool guys, the cool badasses is a little maybe overdone, especially in Star Wars, but I was very happy. I'm glad that he had some internal drama. Omega, my wife, was like squealing with delight every time she opened her mouth. There's a lot of really great moments, like if you were noticed during the prison break break escapade, Omega was doing everything she could to mimic Hunter in her actions and how she was moving. So there's a lot of really good like details and characterization. So it's in great hands. I'm excited to see where this goes.
Yes. Jacob, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was, I think like one of the first things that hit me was the just hearing the classic Clone Wars style voiceover when the episode started. Like that, that deep booming voice was so nostalgic. Like even though like I'd watched, Clone Wars season 7 was what, a year ago now, 2 years, yeah, just a year ago.
Yeah, a year.
I can't remember. Yeah, that wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
Although we all know how long ago that feels. But just hearing that like classic voiceover and seeing this animation style come back was, I don't know. I think it's just exactly what I needed right now. So I love the series so far.
Yeah, and to see those scenes from the movies in the animation, I thought that was a really cool Easter egg. Emma, what was your favorite part of last night?
Yeah, overall, the first show, awesome stuff. The animation was solid. Omega's a great new character. The Batch is back, and I love that. And yeah, really solid episode overall. Great action. Only mostly positive things to say about it, which we'll talk about a little something later. But yeah, I overall really liked it.
Yeah, I think that is the overall feeling in the Utini community. There's a lot of discussions. The Bad Batch Discord channel is still right now extremely active. And that's really because of one part in particular that especially has to do with this show right here and comics. So we talked a little bit before the show and leading in between yesterday and today, and we thought that we needed to at least talk about it in a little bit for a little bit of time. So for those of you, if you have not watched this episode, watch this yet, we have a 5-minute timer. We are going to talk spoilers for Bad Batch for 5 minutes. So skip ahead 5 minutes in your about like 5.5 minutes in your audio feed. And Jacob, you said for our video listeners tonight, once they see the pull list back up on the screen, that's when we moved on, correct?
Yeah, when you see me in a cover of War of the Bounty Hunter next to my face, that's a good time to unmute.
Okay, so now that we've given you everybody the little spoiler warning, let's talk about Kanan, or Caleb Doom, I guess is how we should talk to him about in regards to last night. There was a very surprise cameo last night in the very opening parts of Bad Batch. We saw the tragic scene of Caleb Doom and his master, Depa Billaba, and that scene was very tragic, but it was a little bit different than the Kanan comic that came out in what, Jake, 2016, I believe?
2015 actually.
2015. So Jacob, why don't you kind of go give a little overview as exactly, because you're a lot more concise than I am, about why this has been such a sticking point for some people.
Yeah, so for those who haven't read the Kanan comic, it's a 12-issue, I guess, maxi series is what you call it, and it's very, very solid. I know a lot of people really love that series. It tells it's a like split timeline, kind of like Thrawn Alliance style book, where it goes between a mission with Kanan during like the course of the Rebel series, as well as Caleb Doom at like the very end of the Clone Wars, with like the last couple battles, Order 66, and how he escapes and kind of starts his new life. And in that miniseries, it tells you or shows you how Order 66 goes down. Obviously, his master dies, he escapes, the clones did it, and they were on Collar, which is how, if I just tell you that, that's exactly what you saw on Wednesday. But I mean, the broad strokes are all the same, but the details are different. Depa Billaba has a different color lightsaber, which from what I've heard, that has changed a lot. The clones that killed them look completely different. Obviously, the Bad Batch was not there in the comic book. The planet looked different. The situation around the whole, like, when they died was different. So, naturally, a lot of people got upset. It's similar to the Ahsoka Siege of Mandalore situation that happened last year, similar to how Cobb Vanth's story wasn't exactly the same as what we saw in Aftermath. It's just we're seeing instances of the TV shows taking excerpts from the written works, whether that's comics or novels, adapting them, but not being totally true to that source material, and that causes a little friction in the community. But
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's important to say that it's okay to be upset about this if you've read the comic. I know it was one of the first things I thought about in the show. And I don't like to be that person that is such a stickler to the canon sort of timeline. And I didn't feel that way about Cobb Vanth. However, it was hard for me not to be disappointed in the lack of continuity between the comic and the show. Just because there are such major differences. Literally, I mean, the only things that are the same is the name of the planet and the people involved, just the Jedi involved, not even the clones were the same. And I think why we wanted to talk about this so early on is because it's important that you can still be disappointed. However, we can still look at the Bad Batch as a whole and appreciate that. And additionally, not harass people that made it for, not paying attention to comics or whatever that may be. There's ways that we can critique what happened without being negative.
Absolutely. Like comics seem to have a long history of filling in cracks until they're no longer needed, and then they're just being discarded. So that level of, I'm not going to say disrespect, but like this medium that we love is constantly being seen as kind of the B list of canon. It's a little grating, but overall, Kanan is still a good story. Right. I haven't actually read it, but I'm assuming 90% of the story is still there and it's still a good story. So you can still, I will be reading it this week with any luck. So, it's still something you can enjoy. It's not something we have to throw out, but I think it's part of our we shouldn't be harassing people, but we should definitely make the comics a real source of a lot of people's enjoyment and a lot of people's, love of Star Wars, so that they're seen as a higher form, essentially.
I think one of the biggest reasons people are so upset is, I mean, one, there's the whole deal with, hey, we had Legends so we can have a more concise, and accurate canon. But the other thing is, this was so easy to avoid. Like, you could have used literally any other Jedi, or you could just slightly tweak the scene and it would kind of still fit. Like, you could still have Bad Batch just on the periphery and, they show up and it still looks the same as the comic. But I don't know. I get it. I think at times like this, it's important to fall back on the Utini fan code. Like, it's okay to, for instance, it's okay to say, I don't like Empire Strikes Back. It's not okay to say Empire Strikes Back sucks and Billy D. Williams
ruined
is the worst.
Franchise.
Yeah, no one wants to hear that. That's not why we're here. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay to be disappointed. It's okay to be a little critical, but it's not okay to start tearing people down because they didn't do exactly what you wanted.
Whatever your thoughts are, you're allowed to have them. And you are, and you're in that position needs to be respected by everybody. And I want to call out the Discord community, our Discord community, because they're having a lot. Like I said, they're still talking about it as of about 30 minutes ago. But everybody's being respectful. Everybody, they're nobody's gotten personal. Everybody, I mean, and there are people that are like, no, I strongly disagree with your position. And there are some people that are firmly on each side of the aisle, but they're all being respectful. Nobody's getting personal, and that's kind of the way that we as a community kind of strive to do. We can disagree, but at the end of the day, it's more Star Wars, and that's the important thing. So that's all that we're going to talk about it, unless more shows up on Friday, and then maybe we'll talk about it again next week.
Really quickly, I would like to point out something that Blind Fates said in the chat that I found very interesting. They say you could view it as the Kanan comic being the way that Kanan remembers it, being Order 66. The comic is technically a flashback as Kanan recalls the events. That's what they're doing. And I like that way of thinking. You could sort of like do those sort of, I hate to say mental gymnastics because it's not really that, but you could think about it in those different types of ways if it makes you feel better. There's definitely tons of ways to sort of rectify it in your head, if that's the type of thing that helps you out. So I just wanted to point that out. It's a great thought.
That's my low bar that I set for myself. If there is some sort of plausible explanation, I'll go with it. That's okay. That's fine. That's, you know what? If somebody says that's his way of remembering it, I can accept that. That makes enough sense for me to be able to move on. And then we go on and enjoy it. We enjoy it. So who knows? Friday we have another episode, and I hope it's as great as the first episode was. But now we're gonna go back into talking comics, and we're gonna do that by talking about the weekly pull list. So Jacob, what do we have in our comic stores today?
Yeah, we have 2 comics that came out today. The first is from Marvel. It's War of the Bounty Hunters Alpha #1. The writer is Charles Soule. The pencils are by Steve McNiven. Covers also by Steve McNiven. The colorist is Laura Martin, and the letterer is Travis Lanham. And really quickly, if you're confused by the whole Alpha #1 thing, it's just a one shot. Just ignore the Alpha. It's the War of the Bounty Hunters one shot, if that makes it easier for you.
Not Afra #1, because when I first saw it, I was like, wait, is that a typo? No, it's Alpha.
The next is the High Republic Adventures #4 from IDW. The writer is Daniel Jose Older, and the artist is Harvey Tolibao. And one quick thing I want to talk about, we talked about it last week, but the sale on Comixology is still going on for one more day. This is the May the 4th sale. Legends is on a steep discount. Every single omnibus
95% off. It's
90.
amazing.
Yeah, it's 99 cents to $1.99 depending on what you get. There is also sales for Canon and the Star Wars Adventures line. It's not quite as much of a sale, but it's still a big discount. And all of those links, as well as links to the issues that came out today, are in the YouTube description down below. A real quick question from the chat. Andrew asked if the Alpha is sometimes called an annual. Not quite. An annual is it's similar. So an annual, it's kind of what it sounds like. It is an annual issue that'll come out for an ongoing series. For instance, Star Wars. Once a year, the Star Wars line will put out an annual. It is a standalone-ish issue that kind of usually will take place outside of the current arc. But will often have things that will relate to something that it'll usually be referenced in later material. So
it's usually a lot longer, like 50 pages, right?
It's not quite 50, but yeah, it's usually significantly longer and like $1 more expensive than the
I was gonna say it's usually a little bit more expensive, not significantly, but yeah, Jacob's right. It's about $1 more, maybe $1.50 more, depending on the cover price.
That is what is going to be out this week.
So make sure you pick those up. War of the Bounty Hunter Alpha was great. No spoilers here yet. I'm waiting to get to my local comic store to pick up High Republic Adventures #4. But yes, cannot wait for War of the Bounty Hunters. And that's what we're going to talk about later tonight. So stay tuned for that. Now we're going to talk about what we are loving this week. And I'm going first. And in honor of the Bad Batch and in honor of the discussions that were had by that, I decided to go ahead and read the 6 issues of Kanan that I purchased way back in 2015 and never read. So I was able to pick it up, and this is right off the bat, Kanan #1. This was just an awesome shot. It's an action shot. It's got Kanan and Depa right there in the middle of the action. And it's really cool. And to have this kind of be the kickoff. What's very interesting, something that I've learned is this is kind of how each of these books, I have the 6 of them, I've read 5 of them so far. Each book has a really nice double spread image to start off the book. So I thought it was pretty cool. I'm thankful for Bad Batch that to bring this up so that I could go back and enjoy this. So that's what I'm loving, and that's what I'm reading this week. Emma, what about you?
Yeah, so I was sort of flipping through some comics that I remembered had some really standout art, and I thought of the Princess Leia series. So this is from Princess Leia #2 with art by Terry Dodson. I really like his art style, kind of with the sort of softer features. And this shows Leia seeing some art of her mother Padme when she's on Naboo, and she's on Naboo looking for survivors of Alderaan. The whole premise of that series is really awesome, and I highly recommend reading it if you haven't. I think, you know, it's one of the sort of more underrated little mini series that I can think of, and I really enjoyed it. The art is great. Highly recommend. Caleb, how about you?
This one comes from Star Wars 2020 issue number 3. I really love the layout of this issue. It has all our 3 protagonists of the main series going back to Bespin. So you see on the top row, Luke going back to the area where he lost his hand, Leia going back where she lost Han, and the bottom row, Lando, where he lost essentially Lobot. I just love the color differences from the blue to the red to the green. You can kind of see like there's a gradient there. And I just love the layout of how it looks like in the middle panel, the stairs are going up and they lead to that crosswalk in the middle. And then the hole going down kind of lines up with that hole where Lobot is. You know, a lot of I would like to think, intentional art decisions here. Mm-hmm. I just loved how that, you know, massive spread really popped out. The colors, the eye lines, really, really good stuff. Jacob, what have you been watching?
So my art, I'm kind of repeating what I did last week. I got another one from the Star Wars 2015 line. This is from issue number 52, with art by Salvador Larroca. It's the very end of the issue, and it's a shame that I cropped out the text because it is such a cool moment. This is like the battle Mako Ta. This is like the rebels are like getting absolutely destroyed, and like their ships don't work and they can't deploy fighters, and they finally find a way to get their fighters out of the ship. And what do we see? This is the formation of Rogue Squadron in canon, and it's such a cool moment and such a like intense battle because Vader's out there too, of course, in his TIE fighter. That I don't know. I love this moment. Like this whole arc. I like the whole like 2 arcs between this and Hope. Yeah, this is Hope Dies, and that and the Siege of Mon Cala. It's some crazy action. It's high intensity, and in addition to this art, I just want to show off a few quick acquisitions of comic books I got recently. So I did end up getting this beautiful cover for High Republic number 4. This like watercolor style of Avar Kriss.
Beautiful.
Love that. I got that from, I think it was Frankie's Comics. And then this other one we talked about it last week. I just had to pick it up, and this is the Vader Down number 1 variant cover from Phil Noto. That has Dr. Aphra and Darth Vader and 000 and BT1. I love the like homage kind of style covers. So that is my art of the week. And after that, we have our community submissions.
Absolutely, yeah. The winner this week was the one and only Milk Dud with his art from Jango Fett Open Season number 2. This is a Legends comic. Is this the first Legends fan submission to be featured here?
I'm like pretty sure.
So yeah, so congratulations, Milk Dud. You win yourself a comic code. We will contact you about that shortly. But I think what he mentioned here is it's just fun to see Mandalorian armor in a lot of different situations. We get to see it, you know, battle damaged and mud stained, and it's just a iconic moment as Jango Fett loses his mentor and fodder figure here. But like the artwork's really dynamic. I said, just being able to see Mandalorian armor in any form is always a great time.
Yeah, one quick correction. There is still a chance. I am doing the omnibus, the Legends omnibus thing. The only problem is I don't think Milk Dud is in Discord, and I don't think he's in the live chat right now. And the sale ends tomorrow, so I will try and find a way, maybe through Timothy. I know he's pretty sure Milk Dud's a patron. I will try and get a hold of you, and if I can get a hold of you before tomorrow, you will get a Legends omnibus. If not, you might just get a comic code. But it's still, hey, it's free comics, so I mean, it's a win-win either way.
Hit us up.
Yes, a very good selection this week. I love that series. Talked about it with the Legends Look Back crew a few weeks ago. I was really blown away by how much I loved it, actually, because I'm not normally like a huge sort of Boba Fett, Jango Fett type of gal, but lately. They've been getting into the soft spots of my heart, and I love it.
Right. So, Tyler, what have you been reading lately?
So I've been, like I said earlier, I was able to read 5 issues of the Kanan comic. I am now completely caught up with Bounty Hunters. I guess I even though the cover came out, I guess I hadn't read the Bosk issue of Bounty Hunters, because that was in my pull list this week at my comic store. So I read that. I'm all caught up on Vader after last week's amazing issue. And I've got, let's see, I've got 2 more issues of Dr. Aphra to read. I've got issue 8 here. I've got issue 9 here. These are what's next, or what's next on my on my list. And I've also kind of broken out this bad boy. This was also at my local comic store. This is the Star Wars fiction collection. It's a bunch of Legends short stories from the Star Wars Insider book. It's got stories by Timothy Zahn, Chrissy Golden, Matthew Stover. I believe we have I know that we have a book profile on this. Do we have a review out on this on the site?
I don't believe so. We have a video that I did with Trev, and it describes what Star Wars Insider is, what this fiction collection is. So if you're not familiar with that stuff, Trev sort of breaks it down for us, and it was a lot of fun to sort of get to ask him some questions and pick his brain about Star Wars Insider.
Even if you're not into Legends, just pick it up just because of how beautiful it is. I mean,
yeah, it's a gorgeous
I know there's a little bit of glare in there, but it is a nice looking book. So yeah, really looking forward to continuing to read that. So that is what I am reading. Emma, what are you reading this week?
My life is crazy, and so I haven't really been reading anything except for the 2 new issues that came out today. I read those this morning, but I just finished my semester of college today, and so I'll have much more free time. Thank you so much. I'm excited. I need a break because of COVID and the new scheduling type of stuff. We didn't have any breaks whatsoever, so we just went like straight through from January, and I am exhausted. So I'm going to be reading some, I think I'm going to pop open my Star Wars Archives book, which was kind of what has kept me going throughout the semester. I told myself I won't open it until I submit my last assignment, and that occurred today. So I'll be reading that next week, and I might be reading some more comics that I got from the sale. I bought every single Legends comic from the sale because you can't resist a sale. So yeah, I'm going to be doing a bunch more reading next week, and hopefully we'll have a much more interesting report for you guys next week.
It's a lot easier to spend $150 when you see that your savings is over $1,100.
It's true. And I even got some Canon ones that I was missing. I spent, I think, just under $200 with like a $1,300 savings. You can't not do it, right?
No, that's amazing.
You know,
yeah, it was great. Felt good. Caleb, what are you reading?
Like a closing business sale. What am I reading? I'm getting ready for War of the Bounty Hunter. So I want to be caught up and ready for that. So I'm going through the 2020 mainline series. So I pretty much caught up on that with some great moments from C-3PO and getting some Poe Dameron backstory. So that's been a lot of fun. I've been enjoying that a lot. It's a lot like mainline is kind of like a vanilla ice cream cone. There's a lot of really good things in there. Maybe, it's a great crowd pleaser, maybe not everyone's number one favorite, but like when you want some Star Wars, it's hard to pass that up. Just some good classic stuff. Plus it stars Lando, who's one of the best like dynamic characters to add into this bunch, as he's just still a lot more charming, a lot more conniving than Han Solo could ever be. So 2020 Star Wars, very, very good, written by Charles Soule, so everything is tying together very nicely. Jacob, what have you been catching up on?
So I've read War of the Bounty Hunters Alpha already. I've not had a chance to read High Republic Adventures #4. I have it behind me. I was busy today and haven't gotten to it, but I'll probably read that after tonight's show. But I've been continuing on with my release order read through. I've gotten into 2019 now, which means I have finished Dark Lord of the Sith. Oh, my
Nice.
God. That's
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
It makes me want to, the ending of that makes me want to go play Vader Immortal again, just because there are some similarities in theme there with like his end goals or his goals on Mustafar that kind of carries over into that video game. So I want to play that again now, having read this series. But yeah, it's really good. Yeah, I can definitely. There's a reason why that was on the Foundational 5. So yeah, wow. All right, that's it. Yeah. I don't know where to go from there.
We try not to be too Vader biased here, but Vader is just such a damn good book. I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter which iteration that you're reading. It is top of the line comic reading. So, all right, for those of you in the chat and with us live tonight, we are going to take a very short break to review some Utini merch, and then we are going to talk crossovers. What are they? What have they been like in Star Wars? And what exactly? How many books are we getting for War of the Bounty Hunters?
Too many.
Spoiler alert, it's a lot. All right, we'll be right back. You know, we've seen that merch ad every week on our show and on the other shows, and I still am amazed at the work that Joxy does. So shout out to Joxy for continuing to create some amazing Utini merch. So tonight we are talking crossover event. Now, for those of you who are not into or still getting up to speed on comics, we're going to kind of give a little bit of an overview of what exactly a crossover event is, the history of crossover events outside of the Star Wars universe, the very small history that we've had within the universe, and then we'll end the show tonight talking about everything that is coming out for War of the Bounty Hunter. So we'll start off right there at the very top, and what exactly is a crossover event? And Caleb, I want to toss this question over to you first. So kind of tell our audience here, what is a crossover event?
It's essentially it's a way for many concurrent mainline series to meet together, mix together, and have a long form story told between multiple issues of multiple series. So, it's pretty well marked on every single issue that's coming out, and each one is a self-sufficient story, so it's easy for people to jump in between the comics and get the full story. But essentially, if you want to be very cynical, it's a way for people to expand out your stories and have to buy more comic books. But it's a good way for like various writers and big events to happen in the Star Wars and Marvel and DC universes, so that they can affect everything at once. So it's a single story arc carried over a long couple of 3-4 different series.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in the current instance, where I'm sure we'll see Aphra do her own thing with her own characters, but it's still going to be connected to the same story that's going to be going on in mainline. It's still going to be connected to the same story that's going on in Vader. And I think that's really cool. And it's really an opportunity to, if you're not reading all the different books, it's a really great opportunity for you to learn what these other books are and who the characters are. Emma, what have you had a chance to read any of the additional both our canon Star Wars crossover events?
I have, yeah, I've read both of them. There's two. I think we're all in agreement that they're kind of like weaker crossover events in their scale, not in their story. This is Vader Down and the Screaming Citadel, which were only 5 issues each of a crossover event.
I think
5 or 6, yeah. Which is let's see, six times smaller than War of the Bounty Hunters. So, you know, a little bit of a difference there, a little bit. I have read both. I do like when characters from one series sort of cross paths with another. It's a lot of fun to see them interact, and I'm sure we'll talk about them a little bit more in depth in a little bit.
Yeah, these books, these events, they're huge in comics. They're newer in Star Wars, but if we take a step out of our favorite galaxy for a moment, comics events are huge in Marvel and in DC. They traditionally happen in the summertime. I'd heard that, Jacob. I know that you've mentioned that a lot. I haven't done any research, wasn't able to find anything. Granted, I wasn't researching that element, but do we know why the summertime?
This is okay. I'm gonna completely speculate, but my understanding is it's just like, you know, it's a summertime blockbuster, but in comic books. You're
Gotcha.
trying to draw on new readers, like younger kids are not in school. You know, you're just looking for anything to just attract new people to your comic book, because you know, you might get someone who's never read comic book, probably not, but what you're really looking for is, let's say I read Superman, and Superman's crossing over with like the Green Lantern and Wonder Woman and Batman and all these different books. If I read that event, maybe I find I really like Batman, and now I'm starting to pull Batman too, and now you're basically doubling your money on me every week. So that's my understanding. It's just, yeah, it's a great way to get new readers in, to get readers into more of your stuff. And the summertime, I feel like it's just a good time to try and make those connections with people. They're getting out of the house a little bit more. They're not, younger readers aren't in school. That's at least how I've seen it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, back in the day when we didn't have the internet, and you were going down to your local comic book store all the time, you could, really expand the number of books that you were reading. And the history of crossover events, the modern now that this is when I say history, I'm talking about the modern sort of, past the golden age, into the mid 80s and current. The first major crossover event happened in Marvel, and it was actually from May 1984 through April 1985, and it was called Secret Wars. There've been a couple of different. I don't believe this is the Secret Wars that everybody's talking about that might be making its way into the MCU.
There's
I believe that
3 Secret Wars, because there's the 80s Secret Wars, then there was the 80s Secret Wars 2, and then there was like a 2014, 2015-ish Secret Wars, something like that. So yeah, it's happened a few times.
So yeah, it allowed people to cross, this was the first book or first event where major Marvel characters crossed over and interacted with each other. And probably, at least from my somewhat better than elementary education when it comes to comics, Crisis on Infinite Earths for DC, that was, whenever I talk about crossover events, this is probably the first thing that comes to mind. This was in 1985, and it basically, Caleb and Jacob, correct me if I'm wrong, and Emma as well, they created this event because they had basically too many books and too many storylines, and they couldn't really, everybody was getting confused, so they created this event to kind of bring it all back down to a starting point, and then start over from there, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty close. It's too many titles, but it's more too many timelines. So Secret Wars, not Secret Wars, Crisis on Infinite Earths. DC loves their crises. They do one every so often. This was the first big one where they had an issue where comics were too complicated for people. There have been so many iterations of Superman and so many iterations of Batman, and over time those different iterations became different universes. So there's the main Earth, and there's Earth 2 and all these different Earths, and there's so many different universes that they decided to have an event that basically just destroyed all of them. They got rid of all of the extra timelines, and they just kept the single, hey, this is your Justice League. This is the true universe, basically. And that's kind of where they went from there. And of course, after that point, it started to get more complicated, but it tried to stay away from how complex it was before. Like they've basically set a cap on themselves. Like, hey, we can't have 1,000 different versions of Superman. We got to have like at least tops like 5 to 6 versions of Superman, and you're really only gonna see one ever. Like the other two might show up like once a year. That's like the long and short of it. But it's honestly, it's like a seminal work of like comic book writing. Like it's like the scope and the impact of Crisis on Infinite Earths is enormous.
To put into kind of Star Wars terms, it's kind of like if they canonized what Disney did when they acquired the EU and kind of like condensed everything down to a nice new marketable package. Yeah. Only they did it in universe, not in corporation backrooms.
They explained it away in a passable way, I guess.
It's Centerpoint Station blows up, destroying all of the Star Wars timeline, and what is left is canon.
It rips a hole in the universe, and multiple versions of Corellia are all of a sudden sucked in and created, and that's how crazy comic books work.
Suddenly, all of the textbooks have these Legends banners across them as your history has been rewritten.
Suddenly, somehow,
I do know
Palpatine's back.
Yeah, right. That's why he's back. I do know that they're usually known for something big happening. Jacob, if you want to pull up those covers again real quick, the Crisis on namely I'm talking about the Crisis on cover there with Superman holding Supergirl. That is something that I've never read this, but I know about this happening. This is the death of Supergirl. Now obviously it's comics, so not everybody stays dead, and when there are multiple Earths and multiple universes, just because one dies, that doesn't mean there's more still alive and well. But that is what I remember from crossover events. Jared Mays is in the chat with just another amazing piece of factoid for us. Apparently in Secret Wars, the seminal event of that crossover is apparently Spider-Man teaches Galactus how to poop. So that is again, Jared is just I am blown away with your comic knowledge, Jared.
A fount of endless wisdom.
We bow to you and your endless knowledge of comics and entertainment mediums. That is amazing.
As someone who has literally never picked up a Marvel or DC comic outside of Star Wars, this sounds confusing. Just honestly, it just does. Like there's like 1,000 Earths. Like what the heck?
Well, luckily there's only one Naboo in Star Wars, so
thank goodness.
We'll start there.
0 Alderons.
Oh,
right.
Wow, that's yeah. So on that, great segue. We could talk about non-Star Wars crossover events forever. They're great. They're tons of interesting events and moments. But let's bring it back in. Let's bring it back into our universe. There have been 2 noteworthy events in the Star Wars canon. One of them being Vader Down, which ran from November 2015 through January 2016. That consisted of the Vader Down one-shot, Darth Vader 13, Star Wars 13, Darth Vader 14, Star Wars 14, and Darth Vader 15. Those were written by Jason Aaron and Kieran Gillen. The art was by Mike Deodato and Salvador Larroca. And these were I actually have not read this. The only thing that I have is I would say before we talk about it, I wanted to show off the only Vader Down thing that I have, which is a Jackson cover there. That is Darth Vader fighting Jackson on the cover in what looks like Cloud City. But I had not actually read these. Emma, I believe you said that you did read both of these, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
So what is for Vader Down? We'll start with Vader Down. What happens here? Because it's an interesting title. So what exactly is Vader doing in this arc? Yeah,
so essentially Darth Vader is facing down the Rebel Alliance. He's he's still on his search for Luke Skywalker. That continues. And very quickly, I believe in the first issue of Vader Down, we get the very famous quote that everybody loves. Of course, I don't remember it exactly, but he says something like, all I'm surrounded by is fear and dead men.
I scrambled. I got it.
Yep.
Yes, this
Good
panel
job.
right here. Everybody's aiming at him. Everybody's still alive. But Darth Vader's like, nah, I'm surrounded by fear and dead men. And it was instantly iconic. You love to see it. Those poor guys. That's all I gotta say. So yeah, Vader is still looking for Luke. And the reason this takes place, I forgot to mention, on the planet Vrogus Voss. And the reason he is there is because Dr. Aphra got some intel for him. And for the first little bit, Aphra is sort of, the eye in the sky, kind of keeping watch. So Vader crash lands on Vrogus Voss because Luke Skywalker in his X-wing just totally rams him in space, which causes them both to crash. So Luke and Vader are both crashed, and the reason it's called Vader Down is because the rebel sort of intelligence, they announce Vader Down. I repeat, Vader Down. And they're all really excited. As you can imagine, they have the chance to kill Darth Vader. Of course they don't, but they have the chance. So basically Vader's being hunted by the Rebel Alliance while Vader is also hunting Luke, but also Dr. Aphra is hunting Luke as well because she's really worried that Darth Vader is going to think that she just threw him right into a trap. So she decides to take things into his own hands. It ends with a bunch of all the characters come together basically. Dr. Aphra, 000, BT1. By the way, Dr. Aphra is very clever in figuring out how to capture Luke Skywalker. She has him for a moment, but obviously she doesn't end up with him. And the clever way that she did this was she spray painted 000 gold, therefore creating C-3PO.
Yeah,
which was hilarious and awesome. And BT1 and R2D2 fight each other. It's really cool. Black Chrysanthemum and Chewbacca fight each other. Han Solo and Dr. Aphra have a great banter with each other as well. And
well, how else are they going to fight? I mean, if I want to see those two fight, I want to see a war of words. I mean, let's be real.
For sure. I mean, those two can banter like nobody else. Of course, you want to see them banter with each other.
They get the barbs out. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it ends with everybody but Aphra going on their merry way. Aphra is knocked out cold by Princess Leia. It's iconic. And
another scene of Leia punching out a dude, which I think we've all appreciate a lot.
Yes. There's a lot of in the comics. There's just a lot of Leia punching people, and I really appreciate it. I think
we needed more of that in the movies. I mean, come on, let's be real.
Mm-hmm. I really love Vader Down because there's just a lot of really good moments. Like I said, Vader just comes in and just like it's hard to find a character who's better represented and better shown off than Vader in the comics. Like he is just a destruction ball, and he's like he literally says, you can exterminate planets sending people against me. It won't work. Just so many great lines there. And then when it's cut by the levity and humor of seeing BT and 000 and Aphra, having these like weird squawking fights with our main protagonists. So it's not all oppressive all the time, and it's a really good it uses the medium really well of having everyone coming together and having a really great drag down fight.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, like having it take place, all of the issues on the same planet of Vrogus Voss, when I had sort of skimmed through it again to remember, I was like, oh my gosh, this takes place all on the same planet. How boring is that? It's not boring. They do such a great job of sort of mixing up action with some dialogue and some more humorous moments and also some quieter moments. I forgot to mention there's a Jedi temple on Vrogus Voss. So we see Luke Skywalker kind of being contemplative. And there's just, it's just a great balance of things.
There you go. I wanted to get your thoughts on this before we move on to the Screaming Citadel.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of it's kind of crazy in that they're literally throwing everything in the kitchen sink at Darth Vader, and he's like, I don't care. Like that panel we showed you earlier, where he's like, I'm surrounded by fear and dead men. In case you haven't read it, the way he kills everyone is by pulling the pins on everyone's grenade around him and then blowing them all up. Yeah, it's just like, I don't know what you can do there. Like, they're like, oh yeah, that's fine. We'll send like Y-wings to bomb him, and he like rigs up the cannons out of his TIE fighter and shoots them all down. Like, it's just so metal. Like, he's just like, I don't care what I'm going to send it, what you're going to send at me. I'm going to take it down, and I'm going to get Luke, and that's all I care about. It's just like a man on a mission.
Exactly. Like, I think the better line is not just like, I'm surrounded by fear and dead men, but in the next like issue, it starts with Vader, you're surrounded, freeze, surrender, and he says, very well, throw down your weapons and I won't kill you.
Yeah, that there's just so many of those like almost funnily like messed up moments by the rebellion. Like, you're gonna tell Darth Vader to freeze, and you think he's gonna listen to you? Like, really?
Like, you don't have a name named Soldier Number 47.
Have you not seen the hallway scene? I mean, come on, that's not happening.
Right. Yeah. No, a lot of great Vader in here. I think he kind of stole the show with all of his badassery. I mean, as much as Vader is horrible and scary, if I was ever marooned on a planet in Star Wars myself, I would love to be marooned with Darth Vader because he's resourceful.
I don't know how long you'd last, but that's definitely somebody that you'd be able to definitely feel a little bit more comfortable that at least one of you is going to survive this.
Yeah, I said you would you, like everyone else, would last until the first failure.
Well, you all have convinced me. I'm gonna make sure that when I head to my comic store this week, if they've had the Vader Down trade paperback, but in the beginnings or around the other trade paperbacks, it's always like the third book in that run. It's usually the Star Wars. There's usually Star Wars trade paperback 1, Star Wars trade paperback 2, and then Vader Down. So I've usually been avoiding it because I haven't read the first 2 trade paperbacks. But you guys have convinced me. So outside of that, we have the other crossover event, and that is the Screaming Citadel that ran from May 2017 through June 2017, and that included the Screaming Citadel one-shot, Star Wars 31 and 32, and Aphra 7 and 8, but also written by Jason Aaron and Karen Gillian. And this time the art was by Marco Cicchito, Salvador Larroca, and Andres Brocardo. Excuse me for butchering those names. Again, I have not read this. I've been trying to make sure I've been reading leading into it. I didn't want to just jump into those books. But Jacob, what are your thoughts on the Screaming Citadel?
So it is something. It's a very crazy, kind of off the walls story. It's kind of bringing that Aphra energy to the Star Wars mainline in a way. Basically, the premise is that Luke needs someone to like help him with he's kind of like constantly with the comic books trying to find out more of how to be a Jedi. So he looks for someone who can help him with that. So Aphra comes to him and tells him, hey, there's this queen on this planet that can basically, she has like one night a year where if you come to her and give her something cool, she will in turn give you whatever you want. So what the cool thing they show her is Luke, the last living Jedi, and in turn she's like, oh yeah, I will give you whatever you want, but actually no, just kidding. I'm basically kind of a Star Wars vampire, and I'm going to suck the life force out of everyone around you. It's so weird.
Well, that took a turn.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah, the Amberson symbiotes from Dr. Aphra Volume 1, that's what's here. That is what's on this planet.
Oh, nice.
Creating all this. So they're coming back there. Yeah, like this queen is powered by them, and she'll give them to people so she can control them like some sort of hive mind. So like Han gets one, and like it gives them like obviously like super strength or whatever, because why not? And yeah, it's so crazy. She tries to suck the life force out of Luke to like power herself up. It is Star Wars. That's yeah. I don't know. It's I think everyone should read it once, but it's a little campy, a little crazy, very comic booky.
Emma, the look
Yeah.
on your face right now is like, yeah. What are your thoughts?
So I reread this today in preparation for the show because I couldn't remember much of it, and then I remembered why I couldn't remember much of it. You know, it's a good story, I guess. It's like it just it is. It's very niche for a certain type of people. I don't like these types of stories where like you've got some parasitic bugs that go into your head. I'm not a huge fan of that. Vampire lady who quote unquote likes the taste of Jedi. It's a little interesting. I like the continuation with the Rur crystal though. Flashback to our Dr. Aphra Volume 1 roundtable, because that's Aphra's whole goal. That's her role in this, is to get the Rur crystal activated, which is interesting. It doesn't show that Rur has a different personality than he did in the flashbacks, which isn't surprising to anyone. Luke was very disappointed, to say the least, in Rur's ability to sort of be his coach. Yeah, it's just it was weird. Like, 000 uses like a saw type of thing to cut open like Black Chrysanthemum's head so that one of the symbiotes can attach to his brain. And he loved it. 000 loved it.
This is an interesting story, and I use that word loosely.
I really love it. I like, compared to between that one and Vader Down. Vader Down is a lot more of a straightforward story, but I really do love Screaming Citadel, if only because of how wild and off the wall it is. Like, the first issue alone is great because it pairs Luke with Dr. Aphra, and you get to see them like merging together and working. They have some really great banter. Luke gets dressed up and to the nines and gets like paraded around by Aphra. There's some really nice, back and forth. It's, there's a lot of really good moments in there. Yes, it's campy as hell, but like, I love it when a art, like a comic book sets up the villain and like all the lieutenants, and then like issue by issue you see the lieutenants getting like killed off or destroyed, and that kind of builds up to the final confrontation. That was good. Kind of left on a cliffhanger that I don't think will ever be touched again, but I think that's okay.
Yeah, I like the point you bring up there, with seeing Luke with Dr. Aphra, because it is like so typical of Luke to trust Dr. Aphra with everything that he has. Like, she says that she can bring him a lot, a sort of like Jedi personality in this crystal. Is a quote unquote Jedi, yeah. And he trusts her implicitly, and she even tells Leia, like, she's not evil, she's my friend. And he was changing his tune by the end of this series like nobody's business.
Mm-hmm.
I think the craziest thing about this series is when I read it, I read it, several years after it came out. I'm like, oh, clearly this was some sort of like Halloween event. I'm sure like a lot of this came out around October. No, it did not. Came out between May and June, which is like blows my mind. I was like, oh, okay, it's an interesting time to write this story, but yeah, sure, cool.
Well, Bounty Hunters is going to be, the War of the Bounty Hunters is going to be coming out in October. So let's transition into the main reason that we're all here tonight, and why you are all listening to us and joining us and that's because we are actually, as a Star Wars community, getting a real crossover event. Jacob's he's going to put up the list. These are all the books that are going to be part of this crossover, and I counted them, 32 books. So Screaming Citadel was 6.
I think 6. Yeah, same with Vader.
Vader Down was 6. That's not even half of what we're getting in this event. I mean, if that doesn't excite you, I don't know what in comic books is going to excite you, because this is going to be just ginormous, and it's going to have a ton of tie-ins with characters that we all as Star Wars fans know and love.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I can't wait. When I saw this list at the end of the alpha, I just got so excited. Like, it's gonna be a wild summer for Star Wars comics, and I love seeing that there's some one-shots thrown in there. I think there was like Jabba the Hutt and like I can't remember the other ones now.
Orlom and Zuckuss. I think like IG-88 might get one. It's just like
Yeah,
I
that
appreciate
sounds
you
familiar.
you called him Forlom. The bounty hunter bounty hunters book is trying to make the for LOM name relevant, but we're not having that. It's
No.
Forlom. So I appreciate you saying that.
oh,
Yes.
also Bausch apparently is getting one, so I guess we'll probably find
Oh,
out
that's
how Leia gets
awesome.
his armor.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure that we saw that in Forces of Destiny, so I'll be interested to see if it's the same or a little bit different. I think if I'm remembering correctly, it's been a long time since I've seen Forces of Destiny, but I'm pretty sure in that Maz Kanata gives it to her, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right.
That's an air
yeah.
crossover. And the other big thing is this is all being kind of helmed and pinned, story-wise by Charles Soule, the golden boy of the Star Wars comics and writing right now. He has done
He's not doing anything
work.
right now.
No. I guess this probably explains why we haven't seen him with any more like High Republic stuff. Like he wrote
Yeah.
Light of the Jedi and like that. Like so far, I know he's said he's going to do more, but everyone else is on to new projects in Phase 2. Cavan's got a mountain of High Republic work himself. You'd think Charles Soule would get some, but I'm sure he is plenty busy with War of the Bounty Hunters. That is so many comic books to like, not only the ones he's writing, but he's also trying to oversee the story for the tie-ins. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah,
So
I
with
can
all
just
these
tell
bo-
from this list it's going to be like quite the epic story, and I'm glad that we have someone like Charles who is so experienced with Star Wars comics, kind of heading this this project.
And with all these books, you're going there are many different ways that you're going to be able to read this and consume this. And it all kind of depends on your speed and on and when you want to read this. If you want to get caught up, if you want to be in the know, if you want to join us in the comics Discord channel, we encourage you to read the single issues. But we also know that that's not necessarily something that everybody can do. So there are a couple of different ways that you can read these. Emma, why don't you kind of review some of the different ways that we will be able to enjoy this for the next 6 months?
Yeah, so I think one of the most cost-effective ways, but also the longest waiting-wise way to do this is to wait for the omnibus, which will probably take a couple years, maybe.
2023.
I would
Yeah, so
I would
I-
guess early 2022 probably.
Yeah, so that's definitely like the longest waiting one that you would have to do. So if you don't want to wait that long, which I don't blame you, you're not going to want to wait, I'm sure. You can wait for Marvel Unlimited, which is on a 3-month delay, as well as Comixology Unlimited. So you can wait 3 months for each issue to come out. Another way you can do this is to buy only the alpha and the mini series. So this doesn't include stories from the other series, Star Wars, Dr. Aphra, Darth Vader, and Bounty Hunters. Or you could buy the alpha, the mini series, and whatever else you're currently reading. Keep your pulls if you have a pull of Star Wars or Dr. Aphra, whatever it may be. You can also buy the War of the Bounty Hunter stuff. Or if you're like me and you want to be caught up on literally everything as soon as possible and join in on the discussion, you can buy it all. Buy it at your local comic book shop. Buy it on Comixology. You can subscribe to all the series. And yeah, join in all the fun right when it happens.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that our reading methods are somewhat speculative just based on how comic book events traditionally work. This is how it probably is going to happen. So like treat the alpha is issue 0 and then the miniseries is 1 through 6, I believe. You can read that and get the central story. When you add when you add the ongoing tie-ins, that's usually going to be For Star Wars, that's following the Star Wars main crew and how they relate to the central story of the miniseries. And then you also have like the other one shots, like the Jabba, the IG-88. Those are going to be seeing how they tie in with the main series. So, you can read it however you want. I think for those who like, let's say I just read Aphra and I just want to read Aphra's issues, you might find it a little confusing if you don't know what's going on in the main story, but you'll probably be okay. One thing to note is how many issues it is and how expensive it is. So I brought some examples from my own collection. This is like a normal like comic book event. This is Civil War II, just like the main series of it. It's, like 10 issues. This is a full comic book event. This is what a full comic book summer event looks like. This is DC Dark Metal, every single tie-in. It is a stupid amount of comic books, and like I say that as a collector, it's a lot. If you're going in saying I'm gonna buy every single issue, I just like keep in mind what that's gonna mean. Like, we have the checklist. If you want to, you can go find out how much it's gonna cost you, and just know that going in, because you don't want to be buying everything up through like 2 months in and realize, hey, I can't keep doing this, and then just have to peter off from there. So
if you're not
yourself.
interested, if you're not interested in War of the Bounty Hunters and you're looking to go pick up Vader number 12, the story that was in Vader 11 is not going to be picked up in Vader 12. It will be somewhat different. The flip side of that, though, is if you're only interested in War of the Bounty Hunter and you pick up the Alpha and you pick up just the miniseries, you're going to be able to get a full story. It's going to be just like the trade paperbacks. Now, there might be a situation where, Leia and Luke are on Corellia and they run into Aphra, and Aphra says, oh, well, I was just on Coruscant doing XYZ. There will be a little there in DC and Marvel examples. There's usually a little blurb in that panel that says like, as told in Aphra number 11. So that story will be completely independent and it will be told in those other books. And it's not entire. And again, this is all speculation, but based off of previous crossover events, you're still going to get a full story if you're just interested in War of the Bounty Hunter. But if you want to get all the side quests and all of the other things that are going along with it, that's when we're saying pick up all those other books and get a giant mound of books just like Jacob has, and maybe ask your local comic store for either a short box or maybe even a long box, because you're probably gonna need it by the time this is over.
Very well said. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, if you just want to see War of the Bounty Hunters, that's fine. You can wait. Just read the miniseries. Basically, the miniseries is probably just going to follow the literal slab that is Han Solo and Boba Fett, and then everything else is just how all the other characters interact with the event. So, it can seem confusing. It can seem daunting. This is a lot of comic books, and I understand that, but it's hopefully, you after watching this episode or listening to this episode, you have a bit of a better idea, or maybe we just confused you more. I'm sorry if that's the case, but we're just here to enjoy comic books.
For our audio listeners, I just want to kind of go over in depth. We've got 1, 2, 3. We've got 5 books in May. 5 books in June. It looks like 5 books. If I'm counting that,
6 in July.
6 in July.
6 in August. 6 in September, and 6 in October.
So there you go. So you've got 5 to 6 books every month starting today. With the Alpha running through October. So it's going to be fun. We're going to be here. We're going to be discussing it as best we can. We're going to do our best to make sure we don't bring up any spoilers, but at the same time really talk about it, because it's going to be a lot of fun, and to have all of you listening along with us and participating in the chat. We hope you guys will read along with us and we'll do some fun things. But if you are also new and you're excited about this, but you haven't quite gotten caught up on all of the current titles, that is what we're going to do here right before we sign off. We're going to give you a very non-spoilery, very 1 to 2 minute summarization of what each of the is going on in each of the books. And Caleb, why don't you kick it off with the Star Wars mainline? What is going on with all of our favorite mainline characters?
Absolutely. Kind of a 10,000 meter blurb view here. The Rebel fleet after the Battle of Hoth is badly scattered. They're unable to communicate safely with one another, so they're trying to find the best way to do it, and being hounded by an Imperial commander, Zahara, who's essentially Tarkin 2.0. So while they're trying to do that, the Leia is constructed a little squadron called Starlight Squadron to try to find out what exactly is going on there. And there's a lot of drama and tension there, just being pinned by Charles Soule. Of course, he's having to tie into his previous work here with the High Republic. And then Lando himself is feeling pressured, like he's in with the rebellion, but he's not all in. He feels like he's being too forward with them. He feels like he's not in a safe position with the rebellion, so he's angling to find himself the best hand, essentially. So that's a rough idea of what's going on. So just a lot of turmoil and tumultuousness there, as Leia is still very much reeling of the loss of Han. Emma, you've been keeping up with Dr. Aphra. Can you give us a summary of that?
Yeah, so just a very sort of a brief look at what's been going on in Dr. Aphra. So since this series rebooted from the 2016 series, Aphra's been back to her usual self. She's doing jobs across the galaxy and finding artifacts that only she seems to be able to pull off, doing these jobs. Since the Battle of Hoth, she's found herself targeted by the Tag family, who are a very rich family looking for artifacts and have artifacts of their own. And interestingly enough, their sort of home base, so to speak, is on Canto Bight, which is very cool. She finds herself with a bounty on her head, and she has to outwit everybody who's after her. As you can imagine, her bounty is very large because she's crossed a lot of people in her path, including Sana Staros. As of recently, they've kind of been trying to work together a little bit, trying to find some High Republic tech, which is an interesting tie-in to the High Republic as well. So that's what's been happening in Dr. Aphra. Jacob, how about can you tell us a little bit about what's been happening in Darth Vader?
Yeah, so Vader has, come even though the Empire wins in The Empire Strikes Back, Vader has the failure of not being able to secure Luke Skywalker and letting him get away. So the Emperor is definitely not pleased with him. He goes on a bit of a personal mission right at the beginning, looking after his history, who let Luke become who he is today. And trying to figure out what happened to Padme and what happened to his children, well, as he only knows now, just his child after Mustafar. And then after that, he is summarily wrecked by the Emperor for being weak and letting his emotions get the best of him, and has to kind of relearn through a trial by fire. He discovers, he fights with Ochia Bastoon from The Rise of Skywalker, and he discovers the Sith Eternal plot on Exegol. And it relates nothing to what we're doing with the War of the Bounty Hunters. I have no idea how we're going to transition to that. It's been crazy, but that's what's been happening with Darth Vader so far.
All right, and the last book that is included in the War of the Bounty Hunter crossover event is Bounty Hunters. And after promising to look after a young Kadila, that's how I'm pronouncing it. Valance kind of promised someone from his past that he'd look after her, and because she's a person of interest for two very powerful crime syndicates, and they both want very much to grab her, and so Valance has agreed to ensure that doesn't happen, which of course finds himself with the target of a very lucrative bounty on his head. And that attracts all the bounty hunters that we have come to know, including the likes of Zuckuss and Forlom. They run into him first. He uses a little bit of wit and eludes them for a bit, and then finds another person from his past, and who he actually owes a favor to, and that leads him on a mission to save the crew of a disabled rebel transport. That is, as you would expect, not all it appears to be, and eventually he runs into Dengar and the Onaka pirates, and that little meetup allows Dengar to kind of spill the beans to Valance about what Boba Fett's been doing, and who exactly he's carrying as cargo, and that would be one Han Solo, and that kind of definitely piques Valance's interest, and they make a decision and he makes a decision to that he's gonna track down Boba, and he's gonna take Han Solo, attempt to take Han Solo off of his hands, and that leads into the event War of the Bounty Hunters. I want to go around the room, give one final closing thought on any of the stories that any of the lines that we're talking about, and then War of the Bounty Hunters. So Caleb, I'm going to start with you.
Good, because I've definitely organized my thoughts onto all this stuff that's running around. I'm excited. I think War of the Bounty Hunters has a real shot at being one of the best parts of Star Wars comics to date. I love all that the mainline stories are doing and kind of interweaving. Charles Soule has long established that he's great at introducing smaller little elements and then bringing them back in later. So I'm really excited that he has this massive overarching plot to see how it all comes together. This is going to be good. I'm really, really jazzed to see just where this will all come through and what this will do. So no, War of the Bounty Hunters is going to be really, really good.
Emma, what are your closing thoughts?
Yeah, I'm really excited for War of the Bounty Hunters. I think for me, Bounty Hunters, the series, has been kind of one of the more underwhelming series for me, but I'm hoping that War of the Bounty Hunters will change that, because I think out of every a series that's going on right now, I think Bounty Hunters is probably going to be one of the more integral to the War of the Bounty Hunters. So I'm looking forward to that, maybe seeing it through a new lens. And if you haven't, I highly recommend catching up on these lines if you haven't been keeping up, or check out a summary on Wikipedia or something like that. I think they're going to be important to War of the Bounty Hunters, and will just enhance your understanding and enjoyment of the crossover. And seriously, I'm really looking forward to this crossover as a whole. When it was first announced, I was, kind of like, oh, bounty hunters, but I'm really, really stoked now, especially after reading the alpha. It totally sold me when I read it, and 10 out of 10, looking forward to it.
Jacob, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm excited. It's so cool to see Star Wars finally take this leap into this big comic book event, because like we talked about, we really haven't seen anything like this before. It's similar to the High Republic. We'd never seen a multimedia publishing effort like that in Star Wars. We've never seen all these books and all these comics and all these short stories tied together like that. And we've never seen a giant comic book event tie together like that. And with someone behind the helm like Charles Soule, I'm super excited. I think this is, even if Bounty Hunters hasn't wowed us so far, I definitely think this can be an incredibly interesting storyline. And I mean, we've all read the alpha. The alpha is great. So
Yeah.
if that's any indicator on how the rest of the series is going to go, I'm super excited.
Yeah. For me, I'm also excited because, like I said, when we were talking about the earlier, the non-Star Wars crossover events, there's usually a really big thing that happens. There's usually a really long-lasting, momentous event. And I'm hopeful that we get that, and I'm especially hopeful that we get that, even though this is a story that is in between stories that we already know. I mean, so we know how, that Boba Fett eventually delivers Han Solo to Jabba. We know that Han Solo eventually we know all of that, but Star Wars does such an amazing job. We took 3 movies 40 years ago and we have created an entire world that tells stories before, after, in the middle of it. And I, more often than not, those have been done outstanding. And I'm looking forward to another sort of opportunity for Charles Soule to kind of leave his mark and really tell a really, really amazing story. Even though we already know the end to it. So that's what I'm excited about. So is War of the Bounty Hunters starts coming out next week. So Jacob, do we have any final? I think we've got one more piece of news that we want to share before we call it a night.
We do. We have an announcement for the show. We had a great roundtable a couple weeks ago with Dr. Aphra, so we figured why not do it again. So in a couple weeks, we'll be covering Star Wars 2020 Volume 2, Operation Starlight. So we'll be talking about that the 26th. The 26th of May. So you got 3 weeks to read this. All but I believe starting today, all but one issue should be available on Marvel Unlimited and or Comics Unlimited or Comixology Unlimited. But you can also pick it up in trade paperback form. You can get the single issues, whatever floats your boat. I will. I don't have it in the description now, but I will throw it in the Cosmic Force Discord channel after the show tonight if you want to pick up the trade paperback from Amazon or something like that. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. This is our first post Empire Strikes Back roundtable. It's it would have been great to start with Volume 1, but if we start with Volume 1 for everything, we'll be far behind forever. So we're gonna have we can't cover we're not the Living Force. We cannot cover everything. But hey, it's a good
we'd be
story.
doing nothing but roundtables every single
yeah.
And while some of you might say, hey, well, that's not a problem, we kind of do want to talk about some other things.
Yeah. And as much as I like reading comic books, I don't like to be forced to be reading certain comic books constantly, nonstop. Mm-hmm. So, I'll read what I like, and for this week and the next couple weeks, it's gonna be Star Wars 2020 Volume 2. So, yeah, can't wait to talk about it with you guys.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, the main line is something that I'm really excited about, and I'm excited for all of you to read it too and join us when we talk about that on the roundtable. But for tonight, that is going to do it. Don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, and tune in right here on youtube.com/Youtini every Wednesday night at 8:00 to hear us live and join in on the chat. If you like what you hear, please leave us a review on iTunes. That way it will help new listeners find the show. We always appreciate the compliments, and it just helps you be a better person to compliment somebody else. Hard to compliment somebody every day, and maybe one day this week, maybe it's us. Be sure to visit utd.com for reviews, articles, and news for the entire expanded universe. We also encourage you to join our Utini Discord community by going to utini.com/Discord. If you'd like to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/Utini and start receiving exclusive perks starting at just $5 a month. A special thank you to Shara Bell, Patrick Ortiz, and Carl Sander on our Jedi High Council, and Kyle Hickman, Elizabeth Cloutier, Jason Mitchell, Freddie C., and Sally and Chris Eilerson on our Alliance High Command for their continued amazing support. Thank you very much. You can tweet at the show at Cosmic Force Show or at each of us individually. I'm at Ty Rags, Emma's at Irma Jedi 26, Caleb is at Caleb Lamanek, and Jacob is at Jacob Bosch. Thank you again to my co-hosts, Emma, Caleb, and Jacob, for hosting with me tonight. Thank you to all of you in the chat tonight on YouTube. Thank you to all of you who have downloaded and listened to us in the future. We really do appreciate all of your support. We look forward to talking War of the Bounty Hunters in the future. But until then, may the Force be with you.